We are children, we have rights, we have a future. It is a conference that was attended by different leaders from all over the world, and to the leaders he said, thank you for making the promise to end AIDS by 2030. Please keep your promise. That conference was also attended by Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, and after listening to the little boy, he said, today a young Kenyan boy has taken the lead, a brave young man and an advocate, a champion of young people throughout the world living with HIV and AIDS. Tonight, on KTN Prime tonight, we'll be telling you the story of Elijah Zachary Lemayan, a young boy who, after telling the entire world that he was living with HIV and AIDS, is now facing discrimination in school. We'll have details of that in this bulletin, but first let's take a look at our top stories tonight. William Sila is a sign language interpreter tonight. I'm Linda Ogutu. Thank you for joining us on KTN Prime. President Uhuru Kenyatta has declined to appoint a tribunal to investigate bribery allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi, citing a pending judicial consideration on Justice Tunoi's retirement age. A letter by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, Joseph Kinyua, to the Chief Justice, Dr. Willie Mutunga, says forming a tribunal as recommended by the Judicial Service Commission would create a constitutional crisis. State House says it shall await the outcome of the judicial process before processing the JSC's petition. Rita Tinina begins our coverage tonight.
As time ticked away to the 14-day deadline for the appointment of a tribunal to investigate bribery allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi, the Judicial Service Commission and State House engaged in a back and forth over the petition. The JSC insisting it had submitted all the required documents. State House, on the other hand, saying it had not received all crucial documents, making it difficult for the president to appoint a tribunal. A tribunal will not be formed, at least not just yet, and it has nothing to do with missing documents. A letter by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, Joseph Kinyua, to Chief Justice Dr. Willie Mutunga cites an ongoing case at the Court of Appeal in which Justice Tunoi is challenging his retirement age. Justice Tunoi lost the battle at the High Court, which ruled that judges should retire at the age of 70 as stipulated under the new constitution. But in his appeal, Justice Tunoi, who is 72 years old, argues he was appointed judge under the old constitution, which set the retirement age at 74 years. In the letter, State House says, at this particular moment in time when the appeal is still pending and where the status of the judge is subject to judicial consideration, implementing the recommendation of the JSC in line with Article 168 would create a constitutional crisis. We therefore propose that we await the outcome of the judicial process, after which we shall process the petition as required by the Constitution and the law, concludes the letter. A decision that may have thrown the country into uncharted territory.
The Constitution does not anticipate any circumstances or any situations where, once the Judicial Service Commission has made a recommendation that a tribunal be formed, that the same can be declined or the president can give a different view about it. So what we have here now is a situation where we are in untested waters. The president has a different opinion from the JSC. What next? A stalemate. What is that stalemate? A constitutional crisis.
If the Court of Appeal rules that Justice Tunoi should have retired at 70, the establishment of a tribunal will be rendered unnecessary. But before the case is determined,
I think only one man can save us from the constitutional crisis, and that's Tunoi himself. And the choice that Tunoi has is to resign.
Rita Tinina, KTN News.
So let's stay by that story by Rita Tinina, and it forms the basis of our big question tonight. We're asking you, do you agree with the president's decision not to form a tribunal to investigate Tunoi. Do you agree? A letter by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, Joseph Kinyua, to the Chief Justice, that is Dr. Willie Mutunga, says forming a tribunal as recommended by the Judicial Service Commission would create a constitutional crisis. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Do you agree with the president's decision not to form that tribunal to investigate Tunoi? Tweeters at KTN News. You can tweet us at KTN Kenya. You can tweet me directly at Lindo Guto. I'd love to sample your views during this bulletin on that decision by the president. Let's stay on corruption allegations now. And former Devolution Secretary, Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru has been grilled by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission's detectives over allegations that she masterminded the theft of 791 million shillings from the National Youth Service. Waiguru spent over 9 hours at the headquarters of EACC here in Nairobi. Waiguru was accompanied by her lawyers together with her supporters. The commission had earlier closed the NYS file and cleared Waiguru of any wrongdoing in the scandal, but has reopened the probe against her after Kafura's affidavit. She declined to speak to the press after her grilling. If you're watching KTN Prime, you need to watch this next story, especially if you're focused on the war against HIV and AIDS and the stigma associated with it. He has wined and dined with heads of state, and perhaps he is one of the most visible ambassador championing an end to stigma and discrimination against persons living with HIV. Perhaps for Elijah Lemayan, a standard 6 people living with HIV, doors that he thought could not open for him opened. But what he did not anticipate is that a local school could deny him admission on the basis of being HIV positive. The very discrimination that he is trying to end globally. He is a sneak peek at Stigma Academy.
A month before, after our boy sat the exam, his results were out the same day, and his parents were given the fee structure, school requirement documents, and asked to report in 2 days.
All right, listen up. The hashtag to use when you're having a conversation about that story by Betty Callow, which will be coming your way later on in this bulletin, is hashtag Stigma Academy. Let's have a conversation about this, because this is a war that involves all of us. That story, Stigma Academy, coming your way by Betty Callow later on in this bulletin. Now, leaders from the South Rift have scorned at Deputy President William Ruto over remarks he made during a recent campaign rally in Kericho, dismissing Baringo Senator Gideon Moi as an inexperienced political spoiler out to split the Kalenjin vote. But as KTN's Murimi Mwangi now reports, this latest war of words has opened a fresh battle zone between KANU and the Jubilee camp in the race for the Kericho senatorial seat, even as the deputy president denied insulting the Baringo senator, as reported by a local daily.
President
The statement by Deputy President William Ruto, alluding that Baringo Senator Gideon Moi is an inexperienced politician driving an agenda to split the Kalenjin vote ahead of the 2017 polls, is the latest battlefront in the race for the hotly contested Kericho senatorial seat, whose shockwaves have widened the rift within the Jubilee coalition, particularly in the South Rift.
Ama una jambo lolote na Gideon Moi ile sisi hatuelewi na tujui, especially huyu ndugu wetu William Ruto, waende wa sort out mambo yao kiume huko msituni.
But it is this screaming headline carried by the Star newspaper on Monday over the DP's statement that has caused a frenzy of anger and amazement in equal measure, particularly on social media. Some arguing that the Deputy President's words were taken out of context, allegedly to dim the fortunes of the ruling coalition in the Kericho by-election. On his official Twitter account, the Deputy President denied ever indulging in what he called trivialities like circumcision, and dismissed the Star as an opportunistic newspaper which only carried the headline to increase the paper's sales for the day.
Hakuna, hiyo ni siasa duni ya upuzi. Na mimi nataka niwaambie, tunataka Kenya hii. Unajua kuna viongozi wengine wako na fikira duni, bado wako na hangover ya zamani.
Made it very clear that those who want to vote any other candidate are fools, and that the only correct candidate is a Jubilee candidate.
In the by-election, KANU's Paul Sang is facing off with the Jubilee Alliance Party's 29-year-old Aaron Cheriot.
Jubilee ni chama ambaye ilisema inawapatia nafasi kila mtu. Na sasa kijana amesimama mbele yenu na amesema ako tayari kupiga kazi.
Mimi siendi Senate kufanyia kazi serikali. Hapana. Mimi naenda kuwafanyia kazi.
Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, Nairobi.
Foreman last night attacked a taxi driver working for ride-hailing company Uber and torched his car in the latest incident of growing harassment against Uber drivers operating in Nairobi. Japheth Kome, Nairobi's police commander, said the men attacked the Uber driver late on Sunday and poured petrol on his vehicle before torching it. He said the driver was bitten but escaped without major injuries. Uber said it has offered its full support to the driver and is in contact with the authorities. Uber began operating in Kenya in early last year, making inroads into the Nairobi market by offering lower prices and cutting out haggling that often infuriates customers.
Taxi and set it on fire. The driver was injured. He sustained burns, he had injuries out of the fire. He was beaten up. Honestly, we cannot allow that kind of nonsense. So, please, tuheshimu biashara ya mtu mwingine. If you have any issue with any other person, there are other methods of settling that problem. But not hurting, not injuring, not destroying somebody else's property.
Let's see how that plays out in the coming days. President Uhuru Kenyatta arrived in Tel Aviv, Israel this evening for a state visit that will see him focus on bilateral partnership with the country on various fronts, with particular interest in security and agriculture. Israel is a key partner in the Galana Kalalu Food Security Program, an irrigation project that has sparked debate on its effectiveness. His visit will include a tour of desert farms in Israel as Kenya seeks to learn from the world-renowned Israeli irrigation systems. KTN's Sharon Momanye is in Tel Aviv and now reports.
President Uhuru Kenyatta arrived here in Tel Aviv, Israel earlier this evening to a state visit that is packed with matters economy, security and agriculture. Earlier on, we had spoken to the ambassador to Israel, speaking about the relationship between the two countries.
We have a few challenges. One of them is modern agriculture. And Israel is renowned for solving issues of agriculture, especially in severe conditions. We also have challenges in security, and for one reason or another, Israel has advanced in the world and known to have an advantage in security. And we expect that with their knowledge and with the systems that they have, that we'll be able to borrow this.
One of the key areas of cooperation between Kenya and Israel is in food security. Israel is a key partner in the Galana Kulalu Food Security Project. Phase 1 of the Galana Kulalu Food Security Project entails the establishment of a 10,000-acre model farm to demonstrate the use of high water efficiency technologies, which will be replicated in the rest of the irrigation area in the project. The aim is to promote food security by cutting reliance on rain-fed agriculture and to bring down the cost of maize, which is a staple food in Kenya.
There is a committee, a steering committee that is supposed to sit down and talk, discuss with a steering committee from the Israeli side on how best to assist Kenya in as far as water issues and irrigation is concerned.
The last sitting president of Kenya to visit the state of Israel was retired President Daniel Torotich Arap Moi more than 2 decades ago. President Uhuru Kenyatta now makes a state visit that speaks volumes to the renewal of ties between the two countries. Kenya is set to benefit from Israel's knowledge and systems, particularly in the areas of security and agriculture. Sharon Momanyi, KTN News, Tel Aviv, Israel.
So you're watching KTN Prime. We thank you for staying with us. Let's focus on our big question before we take a break. We're asking you, do you agree with President Uhuru Kenyatta's decision not to form a tribunal to investigate Justice Philip Tunoi? Do you agree with the president's decision? Let me see if I can sample some of your views. Suleiman Khalid says, no, the president swore to defend the constitution and is no longer the same. Article 168 subsection 5 says shall. Let me see if I can get one more before we take that break. There we go. Githua Wakoine says, no, the president is putting Kenyans in darkness and he must tell us why he didn't form that tribunal. Just some of your feedback on our big question tonight, whether or not you agree with the president's decision not to form a tribunal to investigate Justice Philip Tunoi. We thank you for staying with KTN Prime and indeed for tweeting us. I'll be sampling more of your views during this bulletin, but for now, allow me to take a break. We'll be back. Thank you for staying with KTN Prime, and you've just watched that story, Stigma Academy by Betty Kello. Lots of feedback, lots of Kenyans really concerned about the future of that young boy who stood on the global arena and just talked about the HIV status and the journey it has taken him to get to where he is. Mumias_Julia says, stigma and discrimination have been identified as a barrier to HIV prevention and uptake of care and treatment services. Jacqueline Akinyi says, that boy should be in school. Elijah Lemayan should be in school. Nashon Mungora says, stigmatization era is long gone. We must embrace everyone with no discrimination. If you want to know what Kenyans think about that story, very sad indeed. Stigma Academy used the hashtag Stigma Academy. Then you'll get to pick the minds of Kenyans on what they think about that story. All right, so the unreliable electricity supply in Kenya has over the years seen both small and large-scale dairy farmers lose millions of liters of milk. This has mainly been because majority of milk cooling machines use hydro or thermal electricity. On this week's episode of The Next Frontier, Philip Kentanyi visits a farmer in Eldoret using the solar milk cooling machine, who says solar power is the answer to rural electrification. Take a look.
Kenya has many innovations that are designed to make the life of its population much better. Among them is the solar milking cooling system at Willie Kirwa's farm in Kapseret, Uasin Gishu County. The solar milk cooling system was designed in the United States of America under Kirwa's request after years of losing his milk due to unreliable electricity supply experienced in many parts of the country.
Gharama kweli itakuwa juu mara ya kwanza kwa sababu hii kitu utakaponunua ama kuinstall mpaka ifike hapa itakugharimu karibu 4.5 to 5 million.
It is farmers in remote areas who experience terrible losses. It is for these reasons that Willie Kirwa decided to look for a lasting solution to this annual problem.
Na nikaonelea kwamba wacha niweze kutafuta wataalamu ambaye wanaelewa mambo ya sola. Na nikapata wataalamu ambaye wanatoka nje ya Amerika, tukapata kuongea na hawa, nikawauliza na wakaweza kujua namna wanaweza kufanya na wakaweza kutengeneza hii chila ambaye imewekwa kwa container.
The solar milk cooling system consists of a solar generator that provides power to a conventional block ice machine, which provides enough ice that is used to cool the milk for up to 3 days after milking.
Ile maziwa tunachila hapa ni 600 na hii chila iko na nafasi kubadilisha hii tanki. Maziwa ikiongezeka unaleta tanki ya 1000 ama 1200 ama 2000.
The poor road network coupled with lack of electricity in many rural areas, only 75% of the population is connected to the national grid, all conspires to make dairy farming in parts of rural Kenya pretty difficult.
Wakati kabla sijanunua sola nilikuwa napeleka maziwa kila siku. Saa 7 napeleka maziwa asubuhi. Nikaona kwamba gharama yake inaenda juu.
The availability of a solar milk cooling system like this one gives dairy farmers a new opportunity to collect their milk for even longer days in those remote areas.
Wakulima ambao wako katika nchi yetu ya Kenya tuweze kuungana pamoja, wakulima kama cooperative wanunue chila ambayo inatumia solar ambayo itawasaidia kwa sababu itakuwa inakata gharama.
If more of these solar powered milk chilling machines are installed in most parts of the country, dairy trucks will not have to make daily rounds and no longer need to transport milk from a village collection center to a separate chilling center, saving farmers hundreds of shillings. Kenya experiences 365 days of sunlight every year, and with erratic power supply experience in most parts of the country, farmers like these ones have decided to embrace solar technology, like the milk cooling machine that you see behind me, that has helped these farmers minimize cost in their farms and improve efficiency. Philip Keitany for the Next Frontier.
Let's look at sports now. Isaac Mwangi has been handed a 6-month ban from all athletics management. The IAAF has provisionally suspended the chief executive of Athletics Kenya amid allegations he asked athletes for bribes to reduce doping bans. The governing body for athletics said it took the decision concerning Isaac Mwangi in the interest of the integrity of the sport. An investigation into potential subversion of the anti-doping control process in Kenya will now take place. Mwangi denies wrongdoing and had wanted to leave his post to clear his name. The World Anti-Doping Agency said it was most disturbed by the claims.
If I was not clean, then I would be scared. I'm not scared, because this is not the first case I'm handling. And besides, the amount of money in question here is not little money. It's a lot of money.
Transparency International has called on different stakeholders in sports in the country to exercise integrity, good governance and transparency in a bid to phase out corruption in sports in Kenya. The organization is rooting for the protection of the future by cleaning up sports in Kenya. Robinson Okenye has the details.
Is that we have a big challenge.
Corruption is a scourge that has had the entire country wavering from its effects in different sectors, and sports has not been an exception. A report released by Transparency International Kenya on Monday morning found a number of sports federations engaging in corruption-related activities in the country. The report, which sweeps across different sports, highlights the major gaps in accountability in Africa, including undemocratic processes in regional elections, mismanagement of player bonuses, match fixing, human trafficking and misallocation of funds.
It's a sad state of affairs to say that in spite of the efforts that a lot of people are making, the issue of corruption in many forms is probably as bad, if not worse, in our country than it has ever been before. One great achievement that nobody could have taken, sport, is now being tarnished. It is unbelievably dreadful that this could happen.
As long as this unpunishedness of corrupt keeps going on, our youth is losing faith in future.
With Kenya facing a possible ban from taking part in the Rio Olympics, matters to do with doping could not go unnoticed.
Kenya is banned tomorrow. There will be no difference on Russia. It means that the country is not participating in the Olympics. The country, all the sports activities, all the sports federations will not be, if I'm not wrong, I think that Dr. Taylor can correct me.
So why am I being punished? Because some other Kenyan has felt that they should not be winners, but they should be. Is this right? No, I think we need to say no.
Lack of transparency in African football was highlighted by Transparency International's Football Governance League, and Kenya in particular failed to rank with no financial records accessible online. Currently, there are concerns on the criteria used to appoint former Mathare United head coach Stanley Okumbi as the Harambee Stars coach, replacing Bobby Williamson.
Our accounts, audited accounts, are published annually, and we challenge all other sports organizations, starting with the federation, the Football Kenya Federation, to publish their annual account.
The report recommends, among them, independent oversight in governance of sports associations, transparent criteria for eligibility to all senior decision-making positions, codes of ethics and independent ethics commission in all sports, and increased financial transparency in all sports associations. With the report coming out at a time when a number of federations are under the spotlight of corruption, it remains to be seen whether large-scale reforms will be implemented. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
Then let's teach these mosquitoes a lesson, because Mama has Mortein Doom, which makes mosquitoes go away and not come back the whole night. So you get a peaceful night's sleep all night long.
Mortein Doom. A peaceful night is a Mortein Doom night.
Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. So tonight we're focusing on Justice Philip Tunoi. In the letter by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, this is Joseph Kenya, to Chief Justice Dr. William Mutunga, says forming a tribunal to investigate the judges recommended by the Judicial Service Commission would create a constitutional crisis. So tonight on KTN Prime, we are asking if you agree with the President's decision not to form a tribunal to investigate Tunoi. Do you agree with the President's decision not to form a tribunal to investigate Justice Philip Tunoi? At Offset says the President's refusal is a clear case of selective interpretation of the law. At Pimwani says the President is creating a constitutional crisis. The Attorney General should be blamed for misleading the President. Yatich Zep says no, the President is showing his failure to fight graft. It's unfortunate. We wish away the damning affidavit. William Agembo says no, Uhuru is playing politics with the Constitution which he swore to protect. Mike Maloba finally says if the appeal is on and a constitutional crisis, then I think it is right for him to do it. Just some of your feedback on our big question tonight, whether or not you agree with the President's decision not to form a tribunal to investigate Justice Philip Tunoi. Well, that is where we leave it on KTN Prime. Remember, that story that we've just aired by Betty Charlo on Stigma Academy, just go to your Twitter and just type hashtag Stigma Academy, then you'll get to read the feedback that some Kenyans are posting on social media. Quite unfortunate. Most of them say what is happening to the little boy. Thank you for watching KTN Prime. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. I'm Linda Ogutu.